Hello, lovelies. Had some technical difficulties. So, here we are. And I don't have my sage, so we're going to break protocol and do it without the sage. So, I'm going to have you sit or stand just for a moment with your, as long as it's in a safe environment and you're not driving. Lift your spine and your neck tall out of your pelvis. Take a few deep breaths. You're going to tap the thymus, which is the center of the chest. And see the clutter, any clutter that happens to be around you, just being pushed out to the outside. And then it's going to get filtered and cleaned and taken care of. Mother Nature and Mother Earth will take some of it and recycle it. The rest will go back to wherever it came, clean and fresh and unintrusive to the place where it came from. And here we are. So, the topic today was and is the question of intimidation. Being an intimidator or being the intimidated, either way, that's the word that we're going to discuss. And I don't really know exactly where this is going because it feels like it's going to go in a different direction. But you may ask yourself, why do I not know? And part of that is because although my day is used for me as a point of reference and symbolism, that isn't necessarily the only point of reference that I get as to what guidance wants to talk about when it talks about intimidation. It kind of goes into collective unconscious and talks about what's quasi-relative in this moment for most people. So, intimidation. So the question is, do you find yourself to be intimidated by people? Do you find yourself to be the intimidator? There's different reasons for both. What scenarios create a feeling of it being intimidated? Is there, well, we can let's go through each scenario and see some options that might help you pick from your past or present. So if you're the intimidator, that means that you command a certain amount of attention, you command or require a certain amount of focus, action, behavior, sometimes gifts, as a sense of being alpha, as a sense of being in control, as a sense of being dominant, right? So that's the intimidator. If you're the intimidatee, then you have an understanding what it feels like to be a little more subservient and or different acts, even benign acts, can cause you to feel intimidated. And intimidated could be just simply that there's a sense that there's a lack on your end on some sort, right? So one question is, what do you do in moments of being the intimidator or intimidatee, and observe what scenarios cause that to happen for you, and then turn it around and see if you can, without self-judgment or judgment to the other person, see what it is that you can do to turn that relationship around. Often it's the requirement on both sides of this coin is the requirement for acknowledgement. And while you don't have to, the question is, could you? Could you turn it around just by simply acknowledging somebody, giving them a moment of appreciation, look at them differently instead of getting wrapped into the scenario. When I work with people who have a desire to work through emotional issues, one of the things to do is to extract the emotional part. One is either by just setting it aside for the moment. Two, by recognizing where it came from, where its basis was, usually in a past situation that created some patterning. And then to bring up the facts of what's going on. And our sweet little brains would love to know answers to everything. And there are times where there will not be answers. That's the spiritually difficult scenario for our human brains. The spirituality in us don't need answers. It's the human brain, the human psyche that wants the answers, right? So it's always a balance between finding them or not needing them, having them and not asking for them. So recognizing the facts of what's going on will often alleviate some tension. And at the same time, we have to understand that if there are no answers to the questions, and there are some really difficult questions that will just not have any answers, try as we might, and there are some really light topics that we won't have answers for either. And so what do we do when we don't have answers? Do we flounder? Do we, go into depression? What happens, right? So there are times where we're going to need to be okay with not having answers. The best we can do is pick up the facts about what's going on, some options, without getting stuck on them. So if there's an emotional thing going on between you and somebody else, often what we do is we attempt to problem solve and say, well, maybe they're doing it this because of this reason, maybe they had this going on. We have no idea what's going on behind people's persona. No idea, a lot of the times. And so, because we can't necessarily walk in somebody's shoes, we do our best to allow for us not needing to know the exact reasoning behind somebody else's actions, and have compassion anyway. Have some compassion anyway. A lot of times it's the easiest to do this exercise, which is to put that person back on the playing ground at 5 years old, kindergarten-ish, and see them from that point of view. Because from there, we typically can find more compassion for somebody at that age than we can for someone if they're an adult or a teenager or whatever. So that's an exercise. So once you find something that may intimidate you, the exercise then would be to turn it around and see, look, can I allow myself to be happy for this person without feeling comparative, without feeling like I have to keep up or I have to shine brighter or competition or any of that? Can that happen? And how do I allow that to happen? It's our growth, right? It's not that the other person doesn't have to change. It's how are we going to shift it for ourselves? Because we can either add to it or we can dilute it so it doesn't have the same effects on us. Okay, so intimidation. For some people, they may be intimidated by someone doing better than them, whether that's financially or in business, recognition, with friends, with partners, in physique, in things, right? The things that we have to have. So that sort of intimidation lends itself towards jealousy. So the question there is, can we allow them that opportunity to have that easy for them. Likely, there's not everything that's easy for them. Likely. It may be that they have it easy in one aspect and have it very difficult in another. You may find that for yourself. You may find an aspect of your life is easy, and yet there's another part of you that works hard and harder and harder and hard and hard and still having difficulty, right, in seeing progress. So that's kind of the spiritual joke, so to speak. And we have to trust that we're doing what we need to do. We appreciate the things that come easy or easier. And we continue to work and have faith and trust in the things that are not quite as easy. And that those areas will likely be the places where we're going to learn the most. And we'll end up having the most impact with other people. So, trust. Just have to trust. What else do we have to do? We're going to live in fear and anger? Are we going to live in anxiety and depression over it? Right? So the goal is to gain the tools to understand those times, those areas that are a little bit more difficult. And to balance that is to appreciate the things that are easier. And so if you find the opposite is true in somebody else, that their difficulty is your ease, right? But that means that the reverse is true as well, that their ease is your difficulty. That causes a mirror reaction. And it's like two beta fish seeing each other. They want to fight each other, right? The persona and the psyche tend to want to do that. It's very interesting. So, the same is true. Well, put a mirror in front of a beta fish, and they'll think it's somebody else. They'll think it's another fish, and still want to fight. Right? Okay. So, if you have a mirror in front of you of something that is your threatening, intimidating posture, then finding a way to be appreciative of that person, of that moment, or of that mirror reflection is really going to help you through. So, again, as we started the video, find and ground your feet, lift your spine and your neck out of your pelvis, and tap your center of your chest, which is your thymus, which reminds you to get back into present moment, because usually we're flailing around a little bit when these mirrors come up. And so tapping in, just, I'm willing to see what I need to see in this moment. I'm willing to see my truth. I'm willing to see and be able to see the other person's successes without it diminishing myself. Okay? So those would be some affirmations that that's my dogs. They love me. They always want to be around me. So those are the types of exercises you can do and affirmations that you can do to give yourself some calmness in the moment. And so we'll stop there. So good luck with your affirmations. Good luck with finding those moments of intimidation. And I hope that helps in looking at some of the things in your world, in our world, even if that's to assist somebody else in a moment. And I will speak to you another day. Thanks for watching, and please share any tidbits that you think would be interesting with somebody else so that they may learn as well. And I wish you much empowerment. Talk to you soon.